The giant man was my least favorite customer. You could smell him come in before you saw him, nearly 7 feet tall and at least 400 pounds. The guy had a distinct smell, something like cinnamon and burning hair. I didn't dislike the man because of his appearance or odor, though. No, I hated whenever the customer, Brad, came in because he ate his pizza like he was going to war. Brad would settle his bulk into a corner table and then order our largest deep dish pizza to start. That was his appetizer. He liked to work his way through our hot and ready menu. If a particular item caught his attention that day, he'd order double. His mid-meal break was a triple order of crazy bread, an order of wings, and all of this was washed down with Diet Pepsi by the gallon. The way Brad ate his meals terrified children and ran off other customers. He hit the pizza harder than the Allies when they stormed Normandy Beach. Globs of sauce and chunks of crust went flying in every direction when Brad chewed. It was like someone set off a hand grenade inside of a lasagna. His shirt and cheeks and table were splattered each session before he was halfway done. Anyone sitting within a dozen feet of Brad was in danger of being struck by debris. And the sounds he made when he ate, I still have nightmares about the slurping, chomping, gurgling, moaning sounds. Suffice to say, no one ever wanted to wait on Brad when he visited our Little Caesars. So, as the manager, that duty usually fell on me. We tolerated Brad scaring away our other customers because there really wasn't a legal reason to ban him. That is, until one morning when Brad waddled into the restaurant holding a small cooler, took his usual seat in the corner, and ordered every cheese pizza that we had in the kitchen. "Brad, I think we've got about 80 pizzas cooling back there," I told him. "How many do you actually want?" 80 is a good start, but you'll need to keep them coming. I have an appetite today. What's in the cooler? Brad grinned. His teeth were awful. Just some toppings I brought from home. We don't really allow that. Do I need to register a complaint with Little Caesars' main office again? I sighed. Fine. Whatever. Just don't make a mess. Brad lifted his cooler onto the table and started poking around inside while I walked back to the kitchen to give them his order. When I returned with Brad's Diet Pepsi and first pizza, I nearly gagged when the smell from his cooler hit me. Inside of the box were dozens of plastic baggies arranged around a few ice packs. The baggies were smeared with a thick, pinkish fluid and contained gray chunks of what I had to assume was meat. Whatever it was, it reeked like it was spoiled. "You can't eat that," I said, setting Brad's order on his table. "The food in your cooler has gone bad." Brad just smiled and popped one of the gray blobs into his mouth, then licked the pink fluid from his chin. I retreated before my stomach betrayed me. Me and the rest of the staff barricaded ourselves in the kitchen as well as we could. Every few minutes I would run another pizza out like I was charging across a battlefield dodging cannon fire. Brad's rotten toppings and wood chipper eating style scared away most of the customers immediately. One brave family tried to stick it out sitting at the opposite end of the room. But Brad ended up choking on a slice of pizza and then coughing it up. The wad of dough and phlegm shot over all of the tables and splattered the family. Brad started laughing, spraying more food. That was too much. I stormed over to Brad's table as the family left in disgust. "That's it, you're banned from Little Caesars," I shouted. Brad just continued to munch. "But I haven't finished." "Finish up then. Eat as much as you want and more. But after you leave today you're banned. Permanently." Brad shrugged and thrust his empty glass at me. "Refill." The big man continued to eat for hours. I'd never seen him tear through pizza and wings and crazy bread like he did that day. At one point, he slouched over and I thought he was finally done. But then he popped up and beckoned me over with one swollen hand. I didn't know how Brad could possibly keep eating. The buttons had popped from his shirt and his belly spilled over his legs. "I want to try some of my toppings warm," he said, nodding towards one of the disgusting baggies. "Toss those in the microwave for me." "Absolutely not. If you do, I promise to leave here in the next hour. I pulled my shirt over my nose to try to defend against the stench and gingerly picked up a baggie with a napkin. I hurried back to the kitchen, poured out the vile gunk into a bowl, and put it in the microwave. The odor was overwhelming and I knew we'd need to air out the kitchen for days to get rid of it. I immediately regretted listening to Brad's request. Maybe it was time to call the cops and have him tossed out. More, I heard him yell from the dining room. "Stack them high. And I need a refill." Since I was watching the microwave, my assistant manager Bianca was the one to run out the next tower of pizzas and a 2-liter. The microwave beeped and I extracted the foul contents. When the steam cleared, I nearly dropped the bowl. Not because it was hot, but because, outside of the little baggies, I could finally get a clear look at the toppings Brad had brought from home. Most were unrecognizable lumps of pink brown, but one object was unmistakably, undeniably, the bottom half of a human ear. I placed the bowl on the counter, my face cold with shock. Before I could decide how to react, there was a shriek from the dining room. I made it to the kitchen door just as Bianca came running inside clutching her arm. At first, I thought she'd gotten pizza sauce all over her hand, there was so much red. Then I realized that all of the fingers on her left hand except for her index and thumb were gone, nothing but raw stumps. "He bit me," Bianca screamed. I tried to put the pizza down for him and that monster snapped. I heard the sound of falling tables and a loud crash. No part of me wanted to go look, but I was the manager. The staff at Little Caesars were counting on me. "Wrap Bianca's hand in a towel and keep pressure on it," I instructed one of the cooks. "You, call 911, I said to another. "We need an ambulance and the police." I took a breath and walked out into the dining room to find Brad on the floor. He'd fallen from his chair and knocked the contents of his table everywhere. He had half of a pizza in his mouth, his jowls trembling as he chewed, and he was crawling towards a pile of other slices. "What did you do?" I whispered. "What is wrong with you?" Brad spat out the pizza long enough to laugh. "She shouldn't have gotten so close to my food." "You don't mess with a man's food." "My food." "Where are the toppings?" "What are they?" "Friends and family. I've been saving them up for a while. For something special." Brad Army crawled on his elbows, dragging his distended gut along the tiles. He made it to a nearby pile of pizza and began devouring it. His whole body looked swollen as a blood-drunk tick. "The police are on their way, Brad." He nodded and started eating faster. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The man shoveled food into his jaw, swallowing without chewing. I couldn't help but stare. Once all of the pizza was gone, Brad lay on his belly licking his fingers. "More," he demanded. "No. More." For someone that big, Brad crawled fast. He came at me, pulling his bulk along with bloody fingernails. I ran, tripping over a table and crashing to the floor. There was a tug on my foot. Brad had a hand wrapped around my ankle. He dragged me towards him and I reacted on reflex, kicking out. My shoe connected with a crack and Brad jerked away, his nose bent at an unnatural angle. I said more, he growled, leaning on a table to stand up. But the table couldn't take his weight. The stand cracked when he was halfway standing and Brad slammed into the floor gut first. There was a horrible ripping sound and I saw Brad's eyes go blank. He tried to rise again, but something was wrong. When he got to his hands and knees, it became clear that his body had finally burst from the pressure and the force of the fall. His stomach had a tear right around the belly button, purple intestines, and undigested pizza all spilled out into a wet pile on the floor. "So hungry," Brad whispered before collapsing. They had to bring in a professional disaster cleanup crew to dispose of the body and mop up the mess. We had to close the restaurant for 48 hours. To this day, Brad's last meal remains the second or third worst shift I've ever had managing a Little Caesars. And the craziest part? Corporate used their connections to hush everything up. They paid off staff and customers and squashed all media stories. A complete blackout. That's why I had to post this, to leave at least some record of the incident at Little Caesars. There is a particular staircase that no student is allowed to use in my school. I now know why. I always wondered why we were never able to use this staircase in school, but the teachers, staff, and the headmaster were able to use them. I never knew where the bottom of the staircase was, because I always saw the teachers walking up the stairs but never walking down the stairs. In every assembly, the headmaster ordered us not to use the staircase, though we already knew not to. One time, the class clown said he was going to go down the staircase that we weren't supposed to use, and our physics teacher grabbed him and she screamed at him to not go down there. He ended up sitting back down, snickering as some students were whispering to each other and some exchanged confused glances with one another. This made me more fixated on knowing more about the staircase. I'd wander around the school, looking to find where the bottom of the staircase was, but I'd never find it. I'd spend my break time asking different people about what they know about the staircase, and if they knew any rumors about them. Every rumor they'd say, I'd write down in my notebook. One rumor someone said was that a student in the 7th grade went down the staircase and was never seen again. Another rumor was that our maths teacher kills anyone who goes down the staircase. Though most of the rumors sounded quite stupid, I still wrote them down. At some point, my friend Josh started noticing how curious I was about the staircase. Josh was quite a fearless guy. He would do anything dangerous, as if he was on a suicide mission, like the time when we had a science experiment and he thought that touching the Bunsen burner would be a good idea. He ended up getting severe 3rd-degree burns on his hand, which took around a year to heal, and also became the prime example of what not to do in a science experiment. That was only one of the things he did, but I won't go into detail about the others. 2 days ago, as we were sitting on one of the benches after school, Josh asked, "Why don't you just go down the stairs?" "I don't want to get suspended. I have a good record unlike you," I said, rolling my eyes. "I have a plan though. It better not be stupid." That's when he pulled a notebook out of his bag and drew 2 stick figures. The one with the smiley face is me, and the one with the sad face is you. "Do you understand?" he said. "I do. We're going to do this pretty early. About 3 or 4 a.m., we're going to break into the school. Don't worry though, I've done it before and succeeded." He started to draw a gate, then drew the stick figure representing me climbing over, and the stick figure representing him over the gate as it waited for me to climb down. "This plan is kind of stupid," I said, observing his rushed drawings. "Do you want to see what's under those stairs or not?" "I do." "Then listen. So after we break in, we'll need to be pretty quiet. No talking until we actually get into the building. We'll need flashlights, so we'll both bring our phones. When we get into the building, you need to follow me. The stairs are near where our classroom is, remember?" he explained, with a moderately harsh tone. That's how I knew he was serious. "Okay, it kind of makes sense. I'm gonna go now though. Tomorrow we'll go through the plan again. Make sure to write it down. See you tomorrow, Josh," I said, picking up my backpack and leaving. The next day, at break, Josh showed me his notebook, which contained a detailed plan, explaining exactly what he had said the day before, but in more depth. Though I was hesitant to go through with the plan, I did really want to see those stairs. I had been so determined to know every single thing about those stairs, and this was like a once-in-a-lifetime chance for me. So I agreed to the plan. That was yesterday. I had my alarm set for 2:30 a.m. I got ready, which took about 20 minutes. At around 2:55 a.m., I was out the house. From my house to my school was walking distance, so it was easy for me to get there. When I got there, I was quite surprised to see Josh already there, in front of the gate, looking at the floor. "Oh, you're here already? Should we start now?" he asked. "Yeah, sure. Why not?" I said. That's when he started climbing up the gate. I made sure to watch his technique so I could do the same when he was done. He climbed up the gate fairly quickly, then climbed down the gate, and he was in. Your turn. I slowly started climbing the gate, my arms shaking a bit every time I climbed higher. Eventually, I was able to get down. Okay, now to get inside the building we need to use the back of the building. There's a door there, and for some reason it's never locked, he whispered, and I nodded. We started walking at a fast pace, making sure not to step on anything that would make noise. When we finally entered the building, I followed Josh. Using the flashlight on my phone, we slowly made our way up the stairs, being careful of our surroundings. After what felt like forever, we finally found the staircase. Are you ready? He whispered. Of course. We started going down, step by step. It looked normal, and I didn't get why we couldn't use it. As we were going down further and further, a foul odor hit my nose and started getting stronger and stronger as we went down. What is that smell? I asked, holding my nose with one hand and holding my phone with the other. You smell it too? It's horrible, he said. Though the smell was tormenting our nostrils, we kept on going. I started getting quite tired. I felt like I had been waking down those stairs for an eternity. At some point, as I continued to point my flashlight downwards, I saw something. Something abnormal, out of this world. I held Josh's arm so he wouldn't go down any more steps. He was about to open his mouth to speak until he also saw what I was seeing and immediately closed his mouth. We saw darkness. But in that darkness were faces. Some were crying, some were smiling. But as they looked directly into our eyes, their faces became angry. Full of hatred. They started screaming and shouting unintelligible words. They reached their arms out to us. That's when the darkness started rising, and I screamed at Josh to run, hyperventilating as tears streamed down my face. I rapidly ran up the stairs, as the darkness slowly consumed our every step. As Josh was running though, he tripped up a step and fell. I screamed, and heard the sound of synchronized laughter and the sound of Josh screaming in agony and terror as the creatures pulled him into the void. I kept running up and up the stairs and didn't dare to look behind me. Somehow I was able to reach the top of the stairs, and when I did I collapsed to the floor, shaking uncontrollably, tears still streaming down my face as I covered my face, screaming. Someone tapped my shoulder, and as I uncovered my face I realized it was my physics teacher. She stared at me, with a mix of emotions on her face. She held her hand out, gesturing me to get up. When I got up I realized she wasn't the only one there. All the teachers that taught my class were there, in a line all staring at me. Some were crying, some just stared blankly at me with no expression. You're going to have to go to the headmaster's office, I'm sorry. She said, her voice slightly quivering. When we arrived, she opened the door and as she shut it, I heard the sound of the door locking. That's when I realized this wasn't the headmaster's office. That was a few hours ago, now I'm still here. My phone's on 46% and I'm just sitting here, wondering if it was worth it. I should have just listened. Now I've lost my best friend and I'm going to rot here, and if anyone finds me they'll only find my decaying body. I'm posting this for everyone to know my story, and to say goodbye. The carnival had just arrived in town, bringing with it an assortment of entertainment and diversions. Jack, a solitary bachelor, decided to spend an evening wandering the pop-up city of colors and wonders. The night was young and full of promises as he strolled past the countless stalls, the air rich with the aroma of popcorn, cotton candy, and deep-fried delights. In the midst of the jubilant crowd, one attraction stuck out to him: a solitary clown positioned outside a mirror maze, his brightly painted face contrasting starkly with the carnival's vibrant backdrop. His smile was broad and painted on, but his eyes were empty, hollow, devoid of life. The chilling contrast unnerved Jack, and he hurried past, trying to shake off the unease. The next day, Jack was sitting in his small living room, sipping coffee while he browsed through the local news on his phone. One headline caught his eye: "Carnival Clown Found Dead." He clicked on the article and nearly spilled his coffee when the image loaded. It was the same clown from last night, the one with the lifeless eyes. According to the news, he had been dead for days even before the carnival began. That night, Jack went to bed earlier than usual, a futile attempt to get the clown's image out of his head. As he drifted to sleep, he could swear he heard soft, maniacal laughter from somewhere within the house. He passed it off as his mind playing tricks, fueled by the unsettling events of the day. The next morning, he found a white, polka-dotted cloth on his bedroom floor, the same kind the clown had worn around his neck. Night after night, the laughter grew louder, and every morning, there was a new item from the clown's ensemble. A big red nose, a pair of oversized shoes, a colorful wig. With each passing day, Jack grew more and more terrified. One night, he was startled awake. There, in the corner of his room, stood the clown, the same terrifying smile plastered on his face. "Find my killer," the clown hissed, his voice echoing around the room. Jack's days became a blur of fear and paranoia, his nights a constant struggle for sleep. He visited the police, who dismissed him, attributing his experiences to stress or an overactive imagination. The news had no further updates about the clown's death, except that it was ruled as suspicious. Out of options, Jack decided to confront his fears. He returned to the carnival grounds, now eerily quiet, deserted. He explored the place, dug through past records, asked questions, and followed trails that led him deeper into a world of secrets, deception, and murder. The clown visited him every night, growing increasingly impatient. "Find my killer," he repeated, his threats growing more ominous, "or I'll take your life." As Jack unraveled the sinister secrets hidden beneath the carnival's colorful facade, he realized that he was in a race against time, not just to save his own life, but to give rest to a spirit trapped in a horrific loop of torment. Every laughter echoed in his mind, every smile seemed twisted, and every night the clown waited for the justice he was denied or the new life he was promised. The dead don't laugh, they say. But in Jack's life, the laughter of the dead had become a haunting melody, a chilling reminder of his spectral visitor and the carnival of horrors that had changed his life forever. The everlasting sakura. Ever since I can remember, the old sakura tree at our quaint village school has been a peculiar anomaly. Despite the harsh winters of our region, the sakura blossomed all year round, its delicate petals drifting gracefully to the schoolyard floor, even in the dead of winter. The villagers believed it to be the work of a protective spirit, the spirit of a young teacher who loved her students so much that she couldn't leave them even in death. "Did you hear the story about Miss Akane and the sakura tree?" my friend Hiro asked me one chilly afternoon as we watched the vibrant pink petals swirl around the otherwise desolate schoolyard. "Yeah," I replied, watching a lone petal float onto my open textbook. "It's just a story, Hiro, nothing more." Hiro looked at me with earnest eyes. "But what if it's not just a story, Kazuki? What if Miss Akane's spirit really does live in the sakura tree?" His question sent a shiver down my spine, but I brushed it off, chuckling at his childish naivety. I should have known better. That evening, a group of US led by the ever-curious Hiro decided to pay a visit to the sakura tree after school. The air was biting cold, and the setting sun painted eerie shadows on the snow-laden grounds. As we approached the tree, the temperature seemed to rise slightly, and the ethereal glow of the blossoms seemed almost otherworldly. Hiro moved closer to the tree, extending a hand to touch the gnarled bark. "Miss Akane, are you here?" he whispered softly. A gust of wind swept through the courtyard, sending a cascade of petals swirling around us. It was a sight to behold, but also strangely unnerving. Suddenly, Hiro's face went white as a sheet, his eyes wide in awe or terror, I couldn't tell. He slowly turned to look at us, his gaze filled with an unspeakable fear. "She's here," he whispered, his voice barely audible above the howling wind. But there was no time to question him. An unnatural light started to emanate from the tree. It was soft and warm, casting long shadows behind us. The air around us changed, too, becoming less frigid and more welcoming. And then we heard it. A soft, melodious voice echoing through the courtyard. It was comforting, yet it sent shivers down our spines. "I'm here, my beloved students." "Always," the voice said. We ran. We ran as fast as our legs could carry us. Ever since that day, we've respected the legend more than ever. It wasn't just a story. Miss Akane was real, and she was still there, protecting her students. The sakura tree still blooms, a beacon of her undying love. We've learned our lesson, and we've realized some legends are better left unexplored. And some teachers, they never really leave their students, even in death.